Have you ever had a brilliant idea but never acted on it because you were terrified of failing? Maybe you wanted to start a business, write a book, or learn a new skill, but the fear of not being perfect stopped you before you even began. If fear of failure has been holding you back from living the life you dream of, this story is for you. It might completely change how you see failure forever. Once upon a time, in a peaceful mountain village surrounded by rolling hills and pine forests, there lived a young woman named Elena. Elena was 26 years old and had a gift that everyone in the village admired. She was a pottery maker, but not just any pottery maker. Her hands could shape clay into the most beautiful bowls, vases, and cups anyone had ever seen. Every morning, Elena would walk to her small workshop behind her cottage, where shelves lined the walls and her potter's wheel sat in the center. The villagers often passed by her window, hoping to see her at work, but lately they saw her just sitting there, staring at lumps of clay. Elena had a problem that was slowly destroying her passion. She was so afraid of creating something imperfect that she had stopped creating altogether. Every time she sat at her wheel and touched the clay, her mind filled with doubts. What if it's not beautiful enough? What if it breaks? What if people don't like it? What if I waste the clay? Months passed, and Elena's workshop remained empty of new creations. The clay dried up, her wheel gathered dust, and her spirit grew heavy. She spent hours planning the perfect piece in her mind, sketching designs and reading about techniques, but she never actually made anything. One afternoon, her neighbor, Mrs. Rosa, knocked on her door. "Elena, dear," she said gently, "I need a simple bowl for my kitchen. Nothing fancy, just something I can use every day. Can you make one for me?" Elena's heart raced. I'm not ready yet. I'm still perfecting my technique. Maybe in a few months when I'm better." Mrs. Rosa looked puzzled. "But Elena, you've always been wonderful at pottery. What's wrong?" "I don't want to give you something that might break or look ugly," Elena replied, her voice barely a whisper. That evening, Elena sat in her workshop feeling more frustrated than ever. She had disappointed Mrs. Rosa, and worst of all, she had disappointed herself. As she sat there in the gathering darkness, she heard a gentle knock on her door. Standing outside was an old man she had never seen before. He was tall and kind-looking, with calloused hands and clay dust on his simple clothes. "Good evening," he said with a warm smile. "I am Marcus, a potter from the neighboring village. I heard there was another potter here, and I was hoping to meet you." Elena felt embarrassed. "I'm not really a potter anymore. I mean, I was, but I haven't made anything in months. I'm afraid of failing." Marcus tilted his head thoughtfully. "May I come in? I'd like to share something with you." Elena invited him into her workshop. Marcus looked around at the unused clay, the dusty wheel, and the empty shelves. Then he did something unexpected. He picked up a lump of clay, sat at Elena's wheel, and began to shape it quickly with his weathered hands. Within minutes, a simple bowl began to take form. But as Elena watched, Marcus's hands moved too quickly, and the clay collapsed, becoming a shapeless mess. Instead of looking upset, Marcus smiled broadly. "Perfect!" he exclaimed. Elena stared at him in confusion. "But it failed. The bowl is ruined." Marcus gathered the collapsed clay in his hands. "Watch carefully," he said. He took the failed clay and began to reshape it. This time he moved more slowly, and soon a beautiful vase emerged. But again, as he reached the top, the clay tilted too far and partially collapsed. "Another failure," Marcus announced cheerfully, and once again he gathered the clay. Elena couldn't understand why he seemed so happy about making mistakes. "Why are you celebrating failure?" she asked. Marcus paused and looked at her kindly. "My dear Elena, let me show you something." He walked to the window and pointed to the garden outside. "Do you see that magnificent oak tree? Elena nodded. That tree didn't grow straight up to the sky on its first try. It sent out hundreds of roots in different directions. Most of them hit rocks or dry soil or went nowhere useful. Were those failed roots? No. Each one taught the tree where not to grow, making the successful roots stronger. He picked up the clay again. This clay has been failing for millions of years. It was once part of mountains that crumbled, rocks that broke apart, minerals that dissolved. Each failure made it better, more workable, more beautiful. Marcus began to work the clay once more. Every time this clay collapses on my wheel, it becomes more flexible, easier to shape. The actual failures are making it perfect. Elena watched as Marcus shaped the clay into a small, simple cup. This time it held its form. "But how did you know it would work this time?" she asked. "I didn't," replied Marcus with a grin, "but I knew that even if it collapsed again, I would learn something new. Each failure brings me closer to success." He handed her the cup. "This cup exists because of all the collapsed bowls and tilted vases that came before it. Without those failures, I never would have learned the exact pressure, speed, and movement needed to create this." Elena held the cup, feeling its smooth surface. For the first time in months, she felt excited about pottery again. "But what if people judge my work if it's not perfect?" she asked. Marcus smiled gently. "The people who matter will see your courage to create, not your imperfections. And the people who only see flaws, their opinions are like clay that hasn't been fired yet, not strong enough to matter." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Marcus's words echoed in her mind. The next morning, she walked into her workshop with new determination. She picked up a piece of clay, sat at her wheel, and began to create. The first piece collapsed immediately. Instead of feeling discouraged, Elena remembered Marcus's words. "Perfect! Now I know that pressure doesn't work." She gathered the clay and tried again. The second piece leaned too far and toppled over. "Another lesson learned," Elena said to herself, smiling for the first time in months. By the third attempt, muscle memory was returning. By the fifth, she had created a wobbly but complete bowl. By the 10th, she had created something beautiful. Over the following weeks, Elena's workshop came alive again. She made dozens of pieces, some beautiful, some imperfect, but all teaching her something new. When Mrs. Rosa came by again, Elena proudly handed her not one, but 3 different bowls to choose from. "They're not perfect, but they're made with love and courage." Mrs. Rosa examined each bowl carefully and chose the simplest one. "This is exactly what I wanted," she said. "It feels real, honest. Perfect pottery might look nice, but it doesn't have a soul." Word spread through the village that Elena was creating again. People came not just to buy her pottery, but to watch her work. They saw her laugh when pieces collapsed, learn from mistakes, and celebrate small victories. Elena became known not just for her beautiful pottery, but for her courage to create imperfectly. Young people in the village would come to her workshop when they were afraid to try new things, and she would share Marcus's wisdom with them. Dear friend, Elena's story is your story too. Right now, there's something you want to create, try, or become, but fear is holding you back. Maybe you're afraid of looking foolish, wasting time, or not being good enough. But here's the truth that can set you free. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is success in progress. Every failure teaches you something that brings you closer to your goal. Every mistake makes you stronger, wiser, and more skilled. The people who never fail are the people who never try, but the people who fail, learn, and try again, they're the ones who eventually create something beautiful. Stop waiting for perfection. Start embracing progress. Your dreams are waiting for you to be brave enough to fail your way to success. If this story inspired you, subscribe to Tales with English for more stories that turn fear into courage and dreams into reality.